Good afternoon. Welcome all, and thank you for joining us for this afternoon and our campus update. As you can see from the agenda, I will begin by sharing some highlights from the spring semester. Then we will hear an update from Rob Pomalis, Executive Director of University Health Services, on our updated COVID-19 protocol. Our Provost, Dr. Joseph Berger, and Kathleen Hurlis, Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, will provide updates on our strategic planning process and our campus master plan, followed by Dr. Joseph Cooper, Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Black Life, who will provide an update from the Restorative Justice Commission. I will conclude by highlighting some of the initiatives we have undertaken to support our students impacted by the humanitarian crisis in the Ukraine. I am pleased to share the following highlights with you. UMass Boston commencement will take place on May 27th at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. It is my pleasure and great pride to announce that the Honorable Michelle Wu, Mayor of Boston, will serve as our commencement speaker. The Mayor, I am happy to announce, will also be presented with the Chancellor's Medal during the undergraduate ceremony. As we all know, Mayor Wu is the first woman, first person of color, and first Asian American ever to be elected to serve as our city's mayor. I look forward to her joining us on May 27th to congratulate and celebrate with our graduating beacons. This spring semester, we welcome 650 new transfer undergraduate students, a 17% increase over spring 2021, and the largest spring transfer class in 3 years. I want to thank Vice Chancellor John Drew and his entire team for this achievement and for their continuing hard work throughout the entire year. I am very happy to report that just last week, Congressman Stephen Lynch secured $1.35 million in federal funding for UMass Boston to study the construction of a new nursing and health sciences building. The foundational principle of UMass Boston's proposal, which is supported by nearly a dozen other institutions, is for UMass Boston to serve as a regional hub for nursing programs across Greater Boston. At a time when roughly 500,000 healthcare workers have left their positions since the pandemic, it is today more important than ever that we increase our capacity to educate and train the next generation of healthcare professionals. My colleagues and I look forward to working alongside Assistant Chancellor Matt Fallon as he works closely with Congressman Lynch's office to make this vision a reality. Thank you Congressman Lynch. Philanthropic support for UMass Boston continues to rise. Before the end of the third quarter, we have exceeded $30 million in giving across the campus. To provide some context, our 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year historic average of total philanthropic support has been remarkably consistent. For UMass Boston, all three of those average around $12,500,000 annually. In fact, it was not until 2019 that UMass Boston finally exceeded, for the first time, a total of $20 million in gifts and pledges. And now, before the end of the third quarter of this year, we've just exceeded $30 million in giving across the campus. And we are talking about $30 million in cash received by the university, not gifts and pledges. Folks, this is historic. I also wanted to mention that over 24 million of the $30 million are new gifts to establish new endowments at UMass Boston. These are permanent investments in our mission, and as such are so important given the endowment's positive impact on our finances now, but most importantly, moving forward. Of course, endowment monies mean that many of these dollars are not available for immediate current use, but nonetheless, they are crucial. They are existential in helping our university move forward in new and important ways. My thanks to Vice Chancellor Adam Weiss and his entire team for their efforts in expanding our philanthropic base of supporters, to our alumni, our parent supporters, our friends, foundations, and corporations. As Executive Council member of the Pontifical Academy, I had the honor of hosting an international conference earlier this month entitled The COVID Generation, Children and Youth in and After the Pandemic. Under my leadership, we brought together leading scholars, policymakers, university administrators, philanthropists, faith leaders, and social scientists from around the world, including colleagues from Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Europe, to examine the wicked impacts of the pandemic on our most vulnerable populations around the world. The scholars included Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health and President Biden's choice to serve as his administration's next coronavirus response coordinator. It also included the Reverend Dr. William Barber II of the Poor People's Campaign and leaders in higher education from around the world. From here in the Commonwealth, Smith College President Kathleen McCartney, and Georgetown President John DeGoya. The conference was funded entirely by the MacArthur Foundation and the Spencer Foundation. I am very happy to announce that Dr. Jha will deliver the Robert C. Wood Visiting Professorship Lecture this Friday at 4 p.m. in the McCormack Graduate School. I hope you will all take advantage of his visit to our campus. Danielle Blanchard was hired as the new women's ice hockey coach, and in her first season led the Beacons to the New England Hockey conference tournament. The men's ice hockey also advanced to the New England Hockey Conference tournament. On our women's basketball team, senior Meg Dixon earned first team All Little East Conference and second team All Region honors. She set the program record for points in a game and 3-pointers made in a season to cap off one of the most prolific seasons in recent history. Congratulations to all our student athletes and coaches for representing UMass Boston so well this past winter season. Congratulations also to UMass Boston Intercampus Late Implementation Team and the University Health Services team, both of which received a Commonwealth of Massachusetts citation for outstanding performance as part of the Commonwealth's performance recognition. It is wonderful to see our colleagues receive this well-deserved recognition. Again, congratulations and thank you for your great, great work. Now, I turn the program over to Robert Pomales, Executive Director of the University Health Services, for a COVID-19 update. Rob.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thanks to everyone who nominated our UHS team for that recognition. It is greatly appreciated. And on behalf of everyone at UHS, I want you to know that we have taken great pride in the work that we have done over the last 26 months or so since our very first case that was diagnosed here on campus. Throughout that 26 months, we have made a number of adjustments to our containment and mitigation policies, always trying to stay up to date with the information available to us, what we learned about the virus, the transmission, and the circumstances that we saw here on campus. Surveillance testing, number of cases, and we have once again come to a point where we need to make an adjustment to our mitigation strategy because the information available to us warrants that at this point. If you could advance to the next slide. So we received a number of pardon, I'm having some video difficulties here and I was trying to fix it. So I received a number of questions prior to this presentation and I wanted to build them into my remarks. And the most common question was, why did we decide to lift our face covering requirements at this time? It's as I just said, it is a response to the information that is available to us. That information includes, if you'll go to the next slide, it includes data on the presence of the virus in wastewater. As you can see from this particular chart, it is at levels that are quite low and have been low for at least a couple of weeks at this point. Now, this data tends to signal an increase in cases 2 to 3 weeks prior to us seeing an increase in actual cases. So as of right now, we can confidently say that we will not have any significant increase in case counts in the Boston area for the next couple of weeks. There may be some cases, obviously, but we're not going to see any significant spike in cases, at least for the next couple of weeks. Next slide, please. The other bit of information that we're able to use to assist us in making the decision to lift the mask mandate right now is the CDC's COVID-19 community levels. They have identified some metrics to assist with creating this three-category scheme of low, medium, and high. Currently, our own county, Suffolk, and all the surrounding counties are in the low category. They arrived at this number by looking at the number of hospital beds that are occupied, the number that remain available, case counts, and other data that is necessary to make a determination as to whether or not the healthcare system is going to be overtaxed if there were an outbreak. So we are in the low level, and the corresponding mitigation strategy would be to encourage vaccination and to test when people are symptomatic. Now, we are lifting the mandate as of, if you can go to the next slide, please. We're lifting the mandate as of the 28th, which is Monday. So that is when masking will be optional for people on campus, except when in the shuttle buses and when in the UHS clinics, both counseling and medical. Does anyone still need to wear a face covering on campus? And the answer to that is yes. So at the locations that I just mentioned, and also any person who has a religious and medical exemption for the vaccination requirement would also need to mask. Anyone who is recovering from a recent case of COVID and has come out of 5 days of isolation would also need to continue to wear a mask for the following 5 days or so. I strongly urge anyone who's experiencing any symptoms, whether COVID or not, to wear a mask while they're experiencing those symptoms on campus. What if I don't feel comfortable taking off my face covering? Well, I sympathize with that, and I understand that. There may be people that because of their present health condition or just general anxiety about the idea of getting COVID, taking it home to family, whatever it may be, you should feel comfortable keeping your mask on. Personally, I intend to wear my mask on campus when I'm in an elevator or when I'm in a public restroom. And we should encourage everyone to wear a mask whenever they feel it is appropriate to do so. Now, I know that there's concern about the timing of lifting this mask mandate and all of the news that we're hearing about the subvariant of Omicron. So let me start by saying that the BA.2 subvariant is present in the United States. It's present here in Massachusetts. It is expected that it will be the predominant cause of infection within the next couple of weeks. We know that it is significantly more contagious than the previous Omicron variants or the previous Delta and Alpha variants. That's why it will become the overwhelming cause of infection soon. Now, we also know, however, that it is no more likely to cause serious illness than the previous Omicron variant. So it is essentially a milder illness, typically, compared to the Delta and Alpha. The other bit of good news is that we know that vaccines are effective in protecting against serious illness with this particular subvariant. Additionally, because we had such a large number of positives recently with the BA.1 subvariant, there is a significant level of infection-acquired immunity in the community, which will likely slow the spread of the infections. So for those reasons, it's not clear that it will become a significant spike in cases. Certainly, it is unlikely to rival the spike that we just finished with the original Omicron variant. So I wouldn't be nervous, but I would be observing and monitoring information. Now, what if what I'm telling you is completely wrong and we do have a significant increase in cases? Well, the advantage of having the algorithm from CDC with the 3 levels is that as cases increase, our mitigation strategies that are associated with whatever level we're in would also change accordingly. So we would be able to implement other strategies, like perhaps returning to a mandated mask wearing or expanding our testing that we offer. Now, on that note, I want to say that our testing continues to be available both at Campus Center and at Bayside, on demand or symptomatic. You can get tested for whatever reason you choose, and we urge you to do that whenever you feel it's appropriate. You can make your appointments for that and for vaccinations by accessing your healthcare portal, My Health Beacon. What protocols and requirements will be in place for the fall semester? For example, vaccine requirements. Well, I have to admit that I don't know. And I don't know what I will be recommending to the chancellor and the cabinet for this summer and fall. There are many unknowns. This pandemic is not over. And these adjustments to our policies should not be interpreted as saying that the pandemic is over or that we are somehow able to let our guard down. We're still monitoring all this information very carefully. You can still get vaccinated. We have daily vaccine clinics. We can do any of the 3 doses. And you may have heard the news that the CDC and the FDA are evaluating the need for a 4th dose or second booster dose. If and when that becomes recommended, you can access that at UHS. And with that, let me tell you that if you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me, or you can call me. My extension is 75666. And my email is robert.pomales@umb.edu. And I think I'm handing it off to Provost Berger.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that update. So it's my pleasure, along with my colleague Kathleen Curlace, to talk about strategic planning and master planning and give you some updates. I want to start by just reminding everybody that this is a broad and participative process. We have, including the key subcommittees, we have 11 major committees, but we also have, this is aligned with the work of the Restorative Justice Commission, the activities-based budgeting working group. And so we have more than 230 individuals actively engaged in the process in terms of serving on committees, providing leadership, engaging in data collection, in planning, in engaging with other their constituencies across campus, and in helping prepare the recommendations that will ultimately go into the strategic plan that will be the blueprint for the next 10 years as UMass Boston continues into this extremely important chapter in our history. And I really want to thank, again, the hundreds of people who are contributing their time, their talent, and their expertise to this process. And speaking of process, I really want to continue to emphasize that this is an ongoing process, that we started last fall. Again, a broad-based nomination process that allowed us to generate and populate these committees as we got into the work throughout the fall semester. If we could keep advancing, please. Yep, thanks. So that, we got some of the committees going a little earlier than others, but all of them are now working at full throttle. And heading towards the end of this month, where all committees will be making recommendations to our larger coordinating committee that is made up with the chairs and the co-chairs of the different committees to make sure that we have coordination across this broad endeavor, and that each of the committees has, depending on their focal area, their topic, their area of responsibility, will be providing different types of deliverables that will inform the development of the strategic priorities and the first draft of the strategic plan that then will be shared with the entire campus community. And along the way, if we can go on to the next slide, please. Yep, thank you. That we have had an incredible range of opportunities for stakeholder input and community engagement. Matter of fact, we've had more than 50 organized, scheduled opportunities for input and feedback in a range of formats from all of the different committees. Some of them have been, the webinars like this, but open meetings and listening sessions, focus groups, a variety of surveys and electronic feedback forms, and lots of individual and small group sessions. This is incredibly important so that we can make sure that the entire campus community has the opportunity for proactive, meaningful input as we develop the architecture of the strategic plan going forward. And in particular, I want to emphasize how important the feedback and the input that we have received is for developing core parts of the strategic plan. So for example, the mission and vision statement. In February, a very early first draft of the mission and vision statement went out to the campus community. The idea was to solicit feedback and input as a living, working statement. And there were groups and individuals on campus who felt like that they didn't see themselves, or that the first draft of the mission and vision statement still had much room for improvement. And that feedback has been taken seriously into consideration. The committee has continued to work diligently, to work hard, and to incorporate that feedback. And in the next few days, we'll be releasing the next version of the mission and vision statements that have incorporated the variety of diverse perspectives that make our campus unique. And I will say that, in some of the concerns, are there tensions, right, in the mission and vision statement around the priority and the emphasis on our commitment to being an anti-racist and health promoting institution, and the strength of our university as a research university. These are not competing priorities. These are simpatico. These are strengths that can inform what makes UMass Boston as a public urban research university. And as we state that clearly, a unique leader in the city that has more colleges and universities than any other, that will help set us apart. And so I am greatly appreciative of the committee for not only their hard work, and their investment in this important topic, because the mission and vision statement will drive so much of what we do, but also for their openness and willingness to take the feedback, the input to continue to improve the mission and the vision statement. So be watching for that, with plenty of opportunities for further input. So I want to talk about what are just the larger remaining steps in the process. Again, I continue to emphasize this is an ongoing participative process. By the end of this month, as I noted, each committee will be submitting to the larger coordinating committee a set of distinct deliverables that then in April, we will be synthesizing those deliverables into a preliminary set of strategic priorities. We've already been, looking at, paying attention to the work that is being conducted in those committees, and have started to identify what are some of the both cross-cutting priorities that are emerging out of the work of the committees, and the themes that will be the hallmark of the strategic plan going forward. And then as we develop a working draft of those priorities and how they will fit together in a strategic plan, we will be providing the campus an opportunity to then give further feedback, not just about the individual parts of the strategic plan, but a chance to look at how it all fits together. And where is it that we need to think more deeply and refine the strong work that is already being done, with the goal that we would have a full draft of the strategic plan fully reviewed and ready to be approved by late May. And then next September, to have a final strategic plan that has been approved and that is ready to begin to be implemented. And I'd also like to emphasize that the implementation of the strategic plan is what matters more than having a strategic plan itself. What we do with it matters. This must be an action-oriented strategic plan. So I'd just like to share just a few substantive updates then of where this process is taking us. So for example, if we can go on to the next slide, please. One of the key areas, right, is student success. We have a particular committee that is focused on that, but it cuts across the work of many of our committees, including a subcommittee on educational effectiveness, a committee on strategic enrollment. And that committee has identified 5 areas of focus. And within each of those areas, they have been working to identify what are high impact interventions, best practices, pedagogy. How can we look at the knowledge that already exists, the best practices that are out there, and begin identifying how best to incorporate those, which of those we should adapt and not merely adopt for our campus. They have been looking at our own data here on campus, conducting focus groups, looking at a whole variety of data and indicators that we already have on campus to really understand what is the current state of student success on campus. And then building upon that, what are the recommendations for the future, including providing references and resources that the entire campus can benefit from as we develop specific recommendations within each of these important areas. In addition to student success, if we could go to the next slide, please. We've had a committee working on the Grand Scholarly Challenges, which are big ideas that are centered on real-world problems that we have the opportunity, given the strength of talent and expertise on our campus, that we can corner the intellectual market, sort of build upon those strengths in ways that reflect the values, the ideals, and the substantive topics, right, that highlight who we are and what our research and scholarly strengths are. The proposed Grand Scholarly Challenges are designed to be specific in naming problems that we have the responsibility to address through our research and our scholarship, but to be broad enough that they transcend any one discipline or field or academic or research unit, and that they enable and facilitate transdisciplinary collaboration. And again, this has been a process that began with getting broad-based input through surveys. So, for example, the initial surveys generated from across the campus community 173 different proposals for what might be possible grand scholarly challenges. Those were then analyzed by the committee, culled down to 9 emergent themes. But then there was an iterative process in which more feedback was collected from the campus community. And now, including with focus groups, small group meetings, and now the committee's finalizing, still not quite final, what they are going to recommend for the grand scholarly challenges that will offer us opportunities for collaboration across disciplinary areas and academic units, and including the full range of intellectual talent on campus, and that can help us drive the solution to local and global problems through our collective endeavors. Just a couple of other examples, moving on. So academic program development, thinking about how we enhance existing academic programs and how we can strategically identify what are new program proposals that will best allow us to be responsive to real-world opportunities for our students, for our communities, for workforce development, but do so in a way, right, that builds on our mission and vision, that facilitates and fosters collaboration, that looks at ways in which that they contribute directly to academic excellence at our diverse urban university, and that are sustainable moving forward. So the idea is to be identifying, what are the criteria, the processes, so that we can make smart strategic decisions about how to enhance and grow our academic programs. And then finally, one last area, we've had a committee really looking at, as we think about how to move and drive the university forward, how can we increase our services and responsiveness for all of our constituents on campus? There are 3 emerging thematic areas focusing on our people, with our emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, thinking about the importance of professional development and recognition, and how to promote our talent and promote well-being among all of our folks. Processes, how can we improve our processes? Align things we do better across campus, simplify, deduplicate, but make sure that those processes are supporting our people. And then with that, then how do we use technology to better realize these aims and these goals? These are just a few highlights of across the, again, 11 different areas that the Strategic Planning Committee is working. Next month, be looking for opportunities to provide feedback on the emerging strategic priorities and the strategic plan itself. Again, I want to thank everybody for all of your input. And as a close companion to the strategic plan, I'd now like to turn it over to Kathleen to talk about the master planning update.
Thank you, Joe. So in just a few moments this afternoon for an update on the campus master plan update. So work is, like the strategic plan, work has been underway for the last several months regarding the campus's master plan. Here, very working lockstep with the strategic planning process. The working group for the campus master plan has been hard at work, really making sure that when we get done with the strategic plan, we'll now then also be in the position to have a campus master plan that is up to date and able to support the university's strategic plan. So to that end, there's three major components of the process that we have for the campus master plan update. The first is discover and analyze, and this is the part that we've been undertaking for the last several months. And the purpose of this particular phase of the project is to really gather information, take tours of the campus, assess the conditions of our facilities, and analyze the space that's available here on campus. So there's been a number of kickoff, workshops, work underway to really help assess what we currently have here on campus. As we're wrapping that up towards the end of this month, we'll be then moving on to the explore phase. And here with the explore phase, we're going to take the information that we've learned from the discover and analyze phase and really begin to start some of the programming associated with the master plan, refine planning principles and concept planning, start to look at some scenarios as we see in some of the work of the strategic planning groups beginning to form, and then refine that as the strategic plan continues to develop over the spring. As we get towards the end of the semester and we move on into the summer, then we're going to be into the refine and document phase. And this is really where we're getting the actual planning documents drafted, having feedback, soliciting ideas, and then getting, by the time we come around to the fall semester and get to the end of the fall semester next year, having a final plan, as well as some of the technical documentation that will come along with this plan that we will use during the implementation of some of the work for this plan. So, as we get into the fall semester next year, you'll be able to think about seeing things like the final report, presentations regarding the master plan. We've got some ways to disseminate, communicate regarding using video and some summary, so that this is going to be very much a working, living document. It's not going to be a big tome that we're going to put on a shelf. We're going to be using it. So if we go to the next slide, just to talk a little bit more about some of the discover and analysis work that's been being done. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank everybody who's participated in this, from the working group to everybody who's offered their observations, their input on our physical plant. We do have some consultants who are working on this, as well as our own campus team, going around to all the locations on campus, all of our buildings. I'm really observing, documenting, taking a look at. We're assessing our existing conditions. We're looking at space and how it is assessed right now in terms of adequacy. A big part of this is looking at our classrooms and how our classrooms, what classrooms we have, how they're used, and how we now think about them as we have support the strategic plan moving forward. And we're also doing a facilities audit that our facilities group will be able to use. We've also been listening. A lot of this part is listening. There's been stakeholder interviews. Over 27 areas of the campus have already been interviewed. There's still a few more to go. And then we're also going to be doing some surveys. So you can keep your eye out. There'll be a survey both for faculty and staff, as well as students. I'm really soliciting additional input around the university's physical plan. And as we take all this information, then it'll be being disseminated and really taking it and putting it into some findings that we will then use as we move on into the explore phase. They'll be going on for the rest of the semester. So I would take this opportunity as well to mention we do have some opportunities on the next slide for continued forums and participation in May. So as we get towards the end of the semester, just keep your eye out. We will be setting up some times, both evening as well as daytime, to really, again, have folks on campus where really we get some working sessions around getting not only putting information out there about what we've learned today, but then also getting continued feedback from the campus community. So that is a little bit of a snapshot on where we are with the campus master plan update. Questions and ideas are welcome. Please feel free to email the masterplan@umb.edu. And more to come as this work progresses. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Joseph Cooper to update us on the Restorative Justice Commission. Dr. Cooper?
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Good afternoon, campus community members. Good afternoon, all beacons. On behalf of the Restorative Justice Commission, I'm excited to present a number of updates that we've been working on. My colleague, Dr. Georgiana Melendez, is unable to be here today, But I also want to, before I highlight some of our engagement, I want to make sure that I publicly mention all the names of the commission members. I want to thank Rosalind, Crystal Gale, Paul, Anetta, Lisa, Camila, Rachel, Georgiana, Katie, Janesia, Celine, Jeriza, Suha, Tracy, Cuff, Muna, Tony, and Kareem. Thank you all for your tremendous effort over the year. We're making great progress. We have 6 subcommittees on the Restorative Justice Commission: the Curriculum and Pedagogy, University Policies and Practices, Campus and Community Engagement, Training and Development, Research and Budget. So we want all of you to be sure to reach out to us if you have particular ideas and in particular efforts that you're working on that you feel like it would be helpful for the Restorative Justice Commission to collaborate on and to support. Please reach out to us and we will make sure to connect you with the appropriate subcommittee. We have 4 proposals that the RJC as a collective have provided support towards, and we have presented them to the Chancellor for a review. And these pending proposals are the Native American and Indigenous People Restorative Justice Proposal, ways in which we can honor the land that we occupy, engage in harmonious practices with tribes throughout the region. The proposal for an ombuds office. Also, we propose the name of a transformative conflict resolution practitioner and Office of Transformation Mediation. Campus climate survey that includes nuanced questions around various experiences, not only around race, but other intersecting identities. And then more recently, a research fellowships proposal in partnership with the Kanala Institutes. Current proposals that are under discussion and soon to be voted on by the Restorative Justice Commission include a College of Management mapping out diversity, equity, and racial justice proposal, which will enable the College of Management to engage in data collection and analysis to inform restorative approaches within the college. An Undoing Racism training by the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, which is co-sponsored by the Africana Studies Department, Undoing Racism Assembly, Faculty Staff Union, Center for Innovative Teaching, and Office for Faculty Development. Those trainings will be starting this week. And then Faculty Staff Union has a proposal around anti-racism training, which the RJC will be reviewing to provide support for pending review. Additional proposals. This is a condensed list of proposals that we have been discussing among our 6 subcommittees. Campus police reform, which were proposed by one of our students, Celine, who also with her peers with the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies student recommendations in conjunction with the ACLU report. Anti-racist trainings, discussions around the nature of them being mandatory, voluntary, as well as incentivized across campus, as well as within specific departments. Equity budget policy that allows our budget to reflect our commitment to restorative justice for our students, staff, and faculty. Redressing income inequality among staff and faculty, possible reviews for salary and wage inequities and how to address them. Revising general education and/or first-year experience requirements to prioritize anti-racist and equity content across undergraduate curricula. Incentivizing anti-racism and culturally inclusive curriculum, as well as artifacts across campus. Creating an interdisciplinary anti-racist faculty cluster hire across various colleges. A review of promotion, tenure, and reappointment policies and potential harms that may have been done or have occurred and how to rectify them. And then a community oversight group of campus and police, Title IX, and Office of Civil Rights review. So these are just some of the proposals that we are reviewing. We encourage all campus community members to engage with us. We will be reaching out to each of you to solicit your support, your ideas, and your partnerships. This time, I will pass it back over to Chancellor Suarez Orozco.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cooper. Thank you for your leadership of the RJC and for all you do on behalf of UMass Boston. Our final slide is so urgent perhaps our most important one, given today's global context, supporting students impacted by the crisis in Ukraine. We have all watched in horror as the crisis unfolding in the Ukraine and Eastern Europe comes to the rest of the world. And we look with empathy, we look with an ethic of care. This is one of the great humanitarian crises since World War II. So far, resulting in more than 10 million people, Ukrainians, but also others, including exchange students from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, from the Caribbean and elsewhere, being displaced from their homes, and more than 3 million human beings having fled the country as refugees seeking shelter in Eastern, Central Europe, and elsewhere. At the local level, we have been working collaboratively to support our students who have been impacted. A special thanks to Caitlin Chahutsky in the Dean of Students Office and Sean Morgan in the International Student and Scholar Services Office for spearheading, leading our efforts. Our focus has been on helping to streamline the process for students who are seeking emergency aid, which is vital to help cover food and housing expenses. Our teams have also been hard at work connecting students to legal counseling for immigration and temporary protected status services, mental health counseling, and supports with off-campus housing concerns. Students who have been impacted are being given additional time to reconcile their student accounts, and barriers have been lifted for them to continue to be enrolled at the university. Anything we can do to support these members of our Beacon family who are impacted by this war, to allow them to focus on what is most important, is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thanks to all of you who have been helping our students in so many significant ways. As true beacons, we have taken this opportunity to bring some light to an otherwise bleak and devastating context. I am happy to announce an anonymous gift of $6,000 in donations were made and matched to help support our students impacted by the crisis. The UMass Boston community is responding. To date, we have raised over $13,000 for emergency aid funds, which will be used directly to help our students who have been impacted by the crisis in the Ukraine. Related to this fundraising effort, I'd like to close by sharing with all of you a message from one UMass Boston student, one of our Ukrainian students, who says, quote, "I am writing to express my sincere gratitude for making such generous contribution in these hard times for my family, which is currently struggling in Ukraine and Russia. I was thrilled to learn," I continue to quote, "about the great financial help, and I am deeply appreciative of your incredible support. Honestly," I continue to quote, "words cannot express how much this help means to me and to my family. I will never forget your support and kindness, and will do my best to pay UMass Boston back one day. End of quote. It is difficult to follow those powerful, beautiful words of gratitude to all of you from one of our students. In a similar vein, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for all that you continue to do to support our students in and out of the classroom. We have been through some very challenging times during this wicked pandemics, and now the crisis in the Ukraine reminds us yet again of what matters most. I so appreciate your efforts as members of the Beacon community in support of our fellow Beacons. Muchas, muchas gracias. May we look forward to better times ahead without masks, but ever vigilant and mindful that we must keep our masks handy in the event that experts in their health guidance changes. I leave you with words that the great Reverend Dr. William Barber II shared with us just 2 weeks ago. Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly. Thank you, Beacons. Good afternoon.